So this is finally unpacking everything I've been planning for my 2009 Honda Civic 2-liter motor VTEC K20Z2 engine, JDM style. On the left side, this is probably everything. This is everything I bought in Cape Town, which was necessary for the build, which wasn't included in the Turbonetics kit. This is a few other things I ordered online, which I couldn't find. It was a pretty hunt to find everything necessary. This filter was part of the Turbonetics kit. So yeah, for me to remember everything, I really need to look up at boosted performance for the injectors. I can keep in mind next time that Dictator, which supplied the ECU, also do injectors and plugs, amongst others just from the ECU which they supply. And I'm definitely looking forward to this. What I'm definitely looking forward to is this 76mm downpipe Turbonetics has provided me with this amazing T3T4 polished Turbonetics turbo, and I can really give a good shout out to them because the way they packed and supplied everything was with good caution. There's the big baby. She looks absolutely flippin' amazing. Big, you can see in relation to my foot, I wear a size 9 European and it's as big as my damn foot, all going for a 2-liter motor. So we're planning to look at around 180-190 kilowatt on about 10-11 psi boost. Depending on how that goes, that will depend how we will, if we will boost it up a bit, go up to 15. I got that 15 mil spring. If I zoom in a bit, I got a 15 psi spring, not 15 mil, 15 psi spring from Mr. Turbo in Cape Town, which also supplied a whole couple of things. You can find a whole lot of things from him. A few things I got from him was this awesome turbo blanket, the heat wrap, some stainless steel bands, this new nice oil catch can, 2 outlets, 1 inlet, baffled and filtered with a drain line. I'll be running manual boost controller at this point. Yeah, I'll upgrade later on to the electronic boost controller. And then I got few accessories for the car which I couldn't find, which I found in Cape Town. So nice racing pedals, and that there's just Honda valve caps for the tires. Extra things I found was this 52, 55 gauge holder, 3 gauge holder. It didn't quite suit my style, so I went back online and then I found these amazing babies. Exactly specified 52mm, very nice fit, clean, single stand, single gauge pod, and it has that hood above it, as you can see. That just really gives it a bit of better look with regards to the sun glaring down on the dashboard at times. And the gauges, 1 gauge which I found at Mr. Turbo, which was the air to fuel ratio gauge, also hard to find from our side. If you're living in the SADC countries, Southern African domestic countries or democratic countries, it's not always that easy to find high quality products, or if you're very specific about your products like I am with a bit of OCD, yeah, it's gonna take some time of hunting online. Back to the gauges. The one on the left, on the right, I believe, is the air to fuel ratio gauge. I got that from Mr. Turbo. It's not digital, so it has the pointer, which points it into the more optimal range for the air to fuel ratio. Yeah, luckily it matches the color scheme, because I am going to be running a color scheme in the engine bay. So that dials on the inside is red and white. The other two is digital. They're going to be red. They have the option for blue as well, but I'm just going to stick to the red wiring. That's for the oil pressure and for the boost. Yeah, there will be some blue trimmings in the engine bay according to the silicone hoses and the vacuum pipes. And yeah, there's the rest of the silicone hoses, which came with the Turbonetics kit, aluminium piping, all the bends that you need. These are 50mm. Really, the way they planned everything, the wastegate, the dump fitting already welded on. I mean, that is what you would expect from buying a turbo kit, that everything is already pre-made out. It's not always the case. Please note that everything on the turbo kit side is not everything from Turbonetics. The turbo is Turbonetics. The rest, like the wastegate, is Rev9. And Rev9 actually sold this kit as one. They only had 2 left, and I was very fortunate enough to have bought it, and that it arrived safely all the way from California, El Monte, I don't know how you pronounce it. And it took about 2 weeks, which they flew in from California all the way down right here to Namibia, Windhoek, where I'll be representing my Honda. And just to go briefly about some of the things, the intercooler. So we work according to centimeters and meters and millimeters here. The intercooler is 27 centimeters in height. I actually didn't measure it in length. I just have a simple ruler here. I'm just taking the intercooler part itself. So that's roughly about 50 centimeters for the intercooler from this to this point. I'm not measuring the entire length of it. So that's about 50 by 27 by about 5 centimeter thickness, and I'm hoping that will fit in front of the car. 63mm air filter. Luckily it's red as well, suit the color scheme. What didn't come with the turbo kit, according to the hoses, was the intake pipe, 63mm from the filter to the 76mm compressor side of the turbo. So that I had to go get in Cape Town, a 76 to a 63mm reduction and 63mm benzene pipes. Now I could have had this one pipe in one length, but unfortunately they didn't have, so I had to buy this piece separate and the silicone coupling separate and the 63 aluminum bend separate. This will probably also give me some small allowance if I need to extend or pull it back in, as it comes from the back of the engine around for the intake. My bonnet is vented, so hopefully that will supply proper enough extra air. The turbo flange, 63mm stainless steel, 5-bolt. And yes, the downpipe does have 2 plugs for sensors, probably for air temp or any other sensor you might have. The fittings they supplied with, I'm really amazed with. These are new types of fittings they supplied with. It's stated there in the paper. I'm not going to take it out now. This is the feed line. Feed line came with the fitting. I just already attached it on. The fitting is reduced to a 1.3, 1.6 millimeter hole. I think they said it can be drilled open if you do need more oil pressure. However, I would not, some people would not suggest that, because that would risk the seals on the inside of the turbo, the oil seals. What's nice about the fittings they supplied was they supplied this new 4-way channel fitting. So luckily enough for me, one will be for the oil feed and back to the engine, and one to the turbo. And then I won't be plugging this one oil feed in, back to the engine, to the turbo. I won't be plugging this one. This one I'll be using for the oil pressure gauge. Fortunately enough, luck was very much on my side. The oil fitting, the oil pressure sensor supplied with a gauge was the same millimeter diameter as the fitting to screw it in. So I'll be reading the oil pressure the oil pressure directly as it goes into the turbo. What the kit also supplied with was obviously the drain line. Still have to couple all this and the fittings necessary. While I was in Cape Town, I couldn't remember if they supplied the sump drain fitting. Here it is. So Rev9 really looked into every bit of point, and this will come between the oil drain and the sump. Drill a small hole, put this through, put a thread on this side and lock it tight, and then feed the oil drain from the other side. These are the rest of the fittings. Oil drain from the turbo and all those other ones. 38mm wastegate, Rev9, as you can see. Two inlets, so that's really nice. What I asked them was the springs they supplied with. Currently there's a 10 psi spring already loaded inside and a 5 psi spring separately. All the fittings necessary for installing it, flanges and gaskets, the keys, SSQV dump valve, SSQV dump valve. I keep on drifting away with the camera. All the necessary fittings supplied with it as well. Vacuum lines, I'll be changing that brown vacuum line to something more blue, just to break the red color in the engine. From the wastegate, I am planning on running a screamer pipe to the side of the car. I'll be venting the side of the car as well, side vents. So this is some few fittings I still have to weld onto the bottom of the wastegate, and then vent it out to the side. I'll still be deciding on that, whether I'm gonna be venting the exhaust wastegate down to the tarmac or out to the side. This is not nail polish on my finger, by the way. Last night I was still spray painting the engine's covers on the inside. Yes, of course, with the turbo kit, the exhaust manifold, cast iron, T3 wastegate, flange as well, and bolts. And I went a bit overkill on the turbo by also having to get new spark plugs. Usually that is recommended because I will be going from natural aspirator to forced induction. So my car already has laser iridium spark plugs in, but I had to step up the heat range. The heat range I currently have in is heat range 6, so I had to step it up to heat range 7, double iridium. These are actually type R spark plugs, but because they can't take the pressure, just to set that spark off correctly. The injectors I went with are 550cc injectors from Boosted Performance. They had these specially made for me from Germany and shipped in. I can take one out. There we go. So I did my homework correctly. 550 cc's of injection at 10-11 psi at about 85% efficiency. I would reach that 890, my goodness, 180 to 190 kilowatt target at the least. The new management I'll be running on is the Dictator 60-2. That's for the more electronically advanced cars with the electronic valve body. I had to get a new spark module, and Dictator supplies everything you need with regards to this. Of course, it comes with a wiring harness. I bought an extra set of vacuum line. I asked for red, but they sent yellow instead. Together for the spark module, for the ECU to pick up timing correctly, I had to get a crank sensor. I'm not gonna necessarily have to take that out, you can see. I had to get a crank sensor together with a new trigger plate for my tuner to correctly time the spark and fuel injection. Some extra accessories I got was a variety of tapes. This is some type of fuel tape which a person can put over the fuel injectors at some certain places. We use it on the marine. This is marine tape actually, because I am a sailor, I work on the ships. So with our fuel fittings, or where there's fittings where the fuel lines run through, we actually place this tape over it just to give it some protection in case there's a leak or some sort. That's a bit overkill. And then some heat insulation tape. This I'll just be placing on the inside of the engine bay at the firewall, because the turbo is located at the back of the engine against the firewall. So this will just be some protection. And some duct tape, you never know where you might find it. Some red insulation tape, again with the car's color scheme, for any wiring that might need some insulation. There's black tape at the back is some form of electrical insulation tape. It's not insulation tape, so to say. If we take off this white wrapping in front, and at the back you'll see it's black. So this actually stretches over electrical wiring, and instead of normal black insulation tape which just wraps around, that gives an extra thicker insulation. You can probably use that on higher voltage wiring applications. And for my bonus, while I was in Cape Town, I actually got a torque wrench for quite cheap, 180 Namibian dollars. That's like $10 US. $10 US for a torque wrench. It has been tested, it has been certified, still working for it from a second-hand shop. I didn't have one yet, because torque wrenches are usually super expensive. Or so a person would think, for those that's more budget-minded. And then I got another set of sockets in a wrench. The other ones have been going missing one by one, and so I just had to buy another new set. So that is it all in a wrap, and once I get into the build, I will keep you guys posted. Currently this is in my living room, because while I was at sea, the people came and delivered it to my home, and my sister didn't think to have it put in the garage. Also, I instructed her to have the guys rather bring it up into the living room, because I was a bit more safety concerned if the people who delivered it would have known what it was and later came back and jackknifed the turbo kit. I spent like how much did I spend? I think I spent like 35,000 Namibian dollars. 35,000 Namibian dollars on the turbo kit. That included shipping. So if you do your maths currency correctly, that's 35,000 Namibian dollars divided by 17, and you'll get the amount for the turbo kit in US. I think it might be about $1,007. Everything I went and bought in Cape Town came up to about 13,000 Namibian dollars. And just for a bonus, my own personal touch, what I'll be doing, adding to the intercooler, is I made these stencils. My badge, J Wolf, and I'll be templating this out, cutting out the wolf and the moon, and I'll be stenciling that onto the intercooler, just to have that black wolf on it. And I'll be adding red LED lights to the background of the intercooler, so when it shines you'll see the black wolf. So that's it all in one sum. I will try leave product links and descriptions above in the comments, So if you have any questions where I found any of the parts, feel free to let me know and comment below. And please do hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, because I found that specific descriptions and specifically specifical builds for the K20Z2 engine for the Honda is a bit undermined, because everyone would usually go for the K20Z3. I'll make another video on that, the difference between the Z4, Z3, the Z2 and the Z1 engines. Basically, the Z2 engines are your lower performance engines. They have a lower compression ratio. They're not running that high compression ratios as your Z3, the US models, or the Z4, the Type R models. Z2 is running 9.8 to 1, and the Z3, Z4s are running, I think, 10 or 11 compression ratio. But in my case, with research and studies I've done, running high compression ratio engines, natural aspirated, and turbocharging them, converting afterwards, would be running a risk of running too high of a compression and putting your engine internals under too much strain. So bringing it down, and like in my case 9.8 to 1, and then turbocharging might have a more safer benefit. If you look at the last Type R that came out, the C1, the second to last Type R, the first one that was turbocharged, not the FK8 model, that same Type R is also running a 9.8 to 1 compression ratio, running on a T3 turbo, and that made about a 200 kilowatt, which is very impressive, and that is where I'm looking at to make compared to that Type R, to hit round about that 180, 190, 200 kilowatt range. So remember guys, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. I'm John Wolf, representing from Namibia, K20Z2 Honda Civic, and I'll be turbocharging that baby T3T4 Turbonetics style with Rev9 and boosted performance dictator. Check out Dictator when you're in SA. They have of the best ECUs, and I'd like to thank Gearbest as well. Gearbest supplied the gauges. Unbelievable, I didn't expect that from them. They really stepped up the game from the beginning. And I'm out.